wasn't that pretty cool that we didn't have our lamps lit, and the gospel's about having your lamps lit? So the question is, do you have yours, your lamps lit? And do you have the oil for if the Lord is delayed, that you will be able to keep your lamps lit? And we're going to talk about that, how to keep those lamps lit in our life. Really, what this message is all about is that it all matters. Everything matters. We don't want to slide by on anything because there's a heaven. What's next? Heaven. And because that's there, everything we do here matters, because those good works we do, they go with us. And if we don't have any, nothing goes with us. All that love and all those bonds of affection we have in this life, that love goes with us. And if we hold back on that love, there's nothing to take with us. So there's a beautiful story. One of my favorite stories comes from a woman named Mary Neal. She was a medical doctor. She was a back surgeon, and she was on a special trip. She went to South America to kayak in one of the wonderful rivers down there. And she went over a small waterfall, just a small drop, and her kayak tip got stuck in the rocks. And the waterfall pressure on top of her wouldn't allow her to work herself out. So one, she couldn't get her kayak unstuck, and two, she couldn't get herself out of the kayak because of the pressure of the waterfall. And so she drowned. She drowned and she died. And she realized what was coming because she's a doctor and she's pretty calm, and she just knew what was coming. And she said, actually, the biggest fear in my life was drowning. And there I am. That's how I went. And so she was there. Katie Couric interviewed her. It's a really cool story on the Today Show or on Good Morning America, whatever it is. And she said, that must have been horrible. And the woman said, actually, it wasn't horrible at all. It was like the most amazing experience in my whole life. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was loving. Jesus held me while I died, and he told me, don't worry. I got this. Don't worry about anything. I got this. So she finds herself up in heaven, not in the final place, but she's up in heaven, and she said it's just so beautiful, just so perfect, just that perfect peace, that perfect presence of God, that perfect joy. Everything was so great, and I was on this path going to a place I could see it. If I got there, I knew I was in. I knew I was at my final resting place, eternity. And she said on the way there, God told her, go back. You have to go back. It's not your time. And she enjoyed this heavenly experience. The joy was so amazing, that joy we sing about, that joy unspeakable. She's like, can you imagine saying this to God? Here's what she said to God when he said, go back. She said, I'm not going back, and you can't make me. How are you going to say that to God? Well, it's that good. What's next is that good. And so she was not giving it up. Well, next thing, she finds herself back in her body. But, and it was a painful experience because I think she was broken, backs, her legs, her hips were all broken from the experience. And she had a long recovery and a lot of pain. But she never told her kids this story because she had little kids at the time. And she didn't want her little kids to know that even though she loves them more than anything in this whole world, more than everything in this whole world, she loved them that much, she still didn't want to come back. And she didn't want them to know she didn't want to come back, because that was that good. That's what we're talking about. Her one takeaway from that was, she said, now I realize, because I've been there, that this life matters. Everything in this life matters. Everything we do matters. And I want to live my life as if every day matters, as if everything I do matters. So when we go from my favorite story to my favorite athlete, I don't know, I have so many, but one of them is certainly Tom Brady. I loved him while he was at the University of Michigan. At least he knew how to win. And he took that winning tradition to the New England Patriots, and he won more Super Bowls than anybody. And I was watching some sports show, ESPN, this week, and apparently Tom Brady threw 2 touchdown passes last week, and he passed Drew Brees. He's thrown more touchdown passes than anybody ever in the NFL. He's got all the records. And so he's won more Super Bowls than anybody in the NFL. And back in his prime, when everything was going beautiful, he was winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl. He was winning an award after award. He was dating the most beautiful models, and he was making more money than most of us can even imagine. He was being interviewed, and in the interview, people were talking about all that he's accomplished, and he just looked at him and said, "There has got to be something more than this." He had everything except what mattered most. He said, "There has to be something more than this." He was looking for what Mary Neal, when she died, found, that experience in heaven, that experience of perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect love. And that's the same experience, the same thing she found you have. You have it in you. And what God wants us to do is let it out of us, like rivers of living water. God wants that to flow out of you and out of me. God wants you to know what you have and to live it out, because the world wants what you have. Don't hide it under a bushel. Don't let your lights go out. The world is looking for what you have. Tom Brady was looking for what you have, even though he had everything we think we want. No, we'd be willing to let go of that to have what God has. What's next? Heaven. So there is something more. That something more Brady's looking for, Mary Neal found when she died. There's another Tom. He's a superstar too, but he's not a sports superstar. He's like a theologian superstar. His name's Tom Aquinas. I've never heard him called that before. Isn't that weird? We all call him St. Thomas. St. Thomas Aquinas. And St. Thomas Aquinas was as good at theology as Tom Brady was at football. He was a superstar. He was so good that he's not only a doctor of the church, he's called the angelic doctor. When theologians look at him, they see what sports fans see when they look at Tom Brady. He really is that good. And he has a lot of writings, and one time he was writing more, and in that experience of prayer and writing, all of a sudden he found what Tom Brady was looking for. He was caught up in God's presence. While in this life, still alive in prayer, he was caught up in God's presence. And he experienced that God that we worship, that God that lives in us, became personally, intimately available and present to him. And so what did Thomas Aquinas do? This guy who writes better about God than anybody else? He threw all of his works into the fire, because he said that God I just encountered was so amazingly more and better than what I write about, that I'm just going to burn what I write about, because I can't even write about that. He never wrote again, because he couldn't put into words how amazing the God we worship is. He couldn't put into words how amazing the God who lives in you is. What's next? Heaven. It's that something more that Brady's looking for. What is Brady looking for? He's looking for what Thomas Aquinas encountered just in prayer, what you can encounter in your prayer, in adoration, in your life. Everything matters because there is something more. One last story, and will be one more famous person. His name's Deacon Ken Price. Deacon Ken Price did a special service on just a couple days ago, right here, All Souls Day, November 2nd. He was here to commemorate the souls of all the people among us who have passed away this year. And they were all invited to be here, but we also celebrate all of us who have lost somebody. We can name their names and call them out and pray for them. And what Deacon told me was that was the most amazing All Souls service he had ever been part of, the one he had this week. It was so touching, so personal. And he said, I can tell you this. I know for them it all matters, and it was evident by their tears. It came out of their tears. Everything about this life mattered to them. Everything about that person that's now there mattered to them. And everything about this life should matter to us. We say in those prayers, and Deacon Ken said, he said that all that love that we share with people in this life, that lasts forever and it goes with us. All those good works, all those good things we do in this life, in our homes, in our marriages, with our children, with our churches, with our schools, with our work, with whatever we do, all of it that's good goes with us. All the waste is just burnt up. Just burnt up. Are our lights out? Are too much of our lives just a waste? How much just gets burnt up and how much goes with us? It's all important because it's there. We're going there. That's what it's all about. There is something more. Tom Brady was looking for it. Thomas Aquinas found it. Mary Neal found it. Deacon Ken found it in that beautiful service. A friend of mine who's a priest in Savannah, he's Vietnamese, and I saw his post on Facebook. He said, hey, let's empty out purgatory. Let's just pray and empty it out. How cool would that be? That's what our All Souls service was about, just praying for those souls. Yeah. I wondered when Mary Neal said, because she had been there, everything here mattered. I wondered what she meant by that. Now I know. Now I know. Yeah, it all matters. Every day, everything, every breath matters. God put it all together in us in such a perfect way. The way God put it together, He left nothing out. It was perfect. Now He wants us to imitate Him. We're made in God's image. Leave nothing out. Leave nothing on the field. Just live your life as if it all matters.